All righty, there I am. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our very first Women with Mojo conversation series with extraordinary, inspirational women over 40. I'm Jill Lebofsky, and I'm the host of your show tonight. And I have started my company, Midlife Mojo, to really I have my mission of just being an education and a support and an inspiration to women in their midlife years and beyond, just providing natural solutions for all of the physical and emotional things that women of this age go through. But Mojo is a lot more than just looking and feeling good. It's also about doing good in this world. And in our society, a lot of midlife women, we're portrayed as being angry and fat and frumpy. And a lot of women, their biggest complaint of this age group is that they feel invisible. So I created Midlife Mojo really to be a place where we not just survive these years, but we thrive so that we can really find our mojo and share our magic with the world. And I created this series, Women with Mojo, to highlight and spotlight some women who are already doing this and just taking their gifts to the world and sharing them. So I do encourage you tonight to participate in the conversation. I believe in the link in the comments there, in the original post, there is a link you can click on, and my streaming service will capture your information, and that way I can see better your name in the chat. But I do encourage you all to participate for sure. And this is my first time doing this and hosting, producing, interviewing all at once. So I know you guys are going to give me lots of grace as I bring on our first guest. Oh, hey there, Barbara. Thank you. Thank you for being on here. All right, let me bring on. Oops, did I do it? There we
Yep.
are. Yay. All right.
Good work.
So I'm very excited to introduce my very first guest on the Women with Mojo series, a good friend of mine, Wendy Wolfe. Welcome, Wendy.
Hi, Jill.
Hi. Oh, thank you so much for being here. So I wanted just to read a little bit about Wendy before we get started so you guys can get to know her a little bit. And I'm just going to read my notes here. But as a force of change, Wendy has worn many hats. She's been an advocate, strategic planner for nonprofits, public speaker, facilitator, community organizer, grant writer, teacher of classes on social change and advocacy, public speaker, inspirer, and writer. Her essays on self-development can be found in several magazines, including Kids Edge magazine, The Independent Reader, and Your Teen magazine. After the tragic loss of her sister in a car accident, she started the idea for the letter writing project and wrote her book with the goal to get the world around her writing letters again for the purpose of healing and dealing with the joys and tragedies of life. In her latest venture, the Graceful Living Challenge, Wendy provides guidance and a place to share with others on intentionally living gracefully on a daily basis. And I just want to say before we kind of get into this interview that you guys are really about to meet like a truly, truly special person. I know she doesn't even know this, but when I first met Wendy, I was sitting at a table. I had just come to a new synagogue and she came jumping over to me, chatty and smiley. And when she walked away, I felt like I had just gotten like the biggest hug ever. And I just know that's how you guys are going to feel after experiencing Wendy tonight. So I am just really excited to have you here tonight for sure.
I am so excited, and it's really always so crazy when you hear somebody talking about you and you're standing there. So thank you so much, and I appreciate being here greatly.
Yes, and I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you standing in your power and accepting all of that because it truly is. You are a wonderful, wonderful woman. And so, even though Wendy, we've known each other for a long time, you did move away from the area a while ago.
I
But I
did.
have followed you. I know I have followed you online, and we've stayed in touch. And I know you as a woman with mojo, not just in business but in life too. So before we kind of get into all the great things you're doing in this world, this is the Midlife Mojo group. So I just wanted my ladies just to kind of get to know you as just a midlife woman doing your best to kind of get through every day like the rest of us. And I always ask a question every week in my group. I do a post and it's always the most popular post, which is interesting to me. And it's what are three things that you are most thankful for or grateful for, either in the moment or in general? So I'm going to ask you the same thing.
Okay, great. That is a great question. So thanks first for having me. Thank you to everybody for being here and taking their time and spending it with us. I just want to say that. I guess I'm grateful for that. That is a one thing. But really, the three things I think I'm most grateful for are peaceful moments, deep connectedness, like having the stillness and the practice to understand who I am. And I think the third thing would be for having people who love me. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And I think that's something that on a daily basis, I think you feel around you, that love and that support of others. And I think that's kind of what carries us to do all these great other things, having that behind us.
True.
Yeah. And so I know you a little bit. So like just to kind of like so these ladies are strangers to you. So if
Yeah.
you were to meet them on the street, what would be three things that you would want a stranger to know about Wendy Wolfe?
Oh, that's such a good question. All righty. So the first thing is I would say that I care about you. So, and I know that sounds very trite and crazy, but I deeply care about other people. Almost, and actually, that's how this book came about that we're going to talk about, because almost to a fault, where I tend to put others ahead of me. So, and not in a martyr type of way, but just in a way, it's just something that happens. And that's a long, complicated story. But anyway, so I think the first thing is that when you meet me, you would notice that I care about you and genuinely want to assist. The second thing would be I'm a dot connector. So that's how I've made my career, is connecting dots for people and for each other. And I think the third thing is that I just believe that we can all have what we need. And of course, we have trauma and things happen. And trust me, if I told you about the last 4 years, you'd be like, wow. Um, but I really do believe that we are all gifts from God. We are all spiritual beings that came here to shine. And that's partly what this book is about, which is we all have those gifts, and it's our duty to tap into them and to utilize them. Because when I'm at my best, you're at your best. And Jill, I mean, when you're at your best, I grew, right? You put your shingle out there with Pilates years and years ago, and
Yeah.
it changed my life. And so it's, if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't be who I am. So it's this ripple effect, and we really are all in this together. So those are four things.
That's you could go on and on. And it's funny. I'm looking over your head at the hearts, and that's what
Yeah,
I associate you with, Wendy. Where she finds them in nature, wherever she goes, and
I
it's
do.
funny because I find myself do every time I see them, I do it, and I think of you when I see something. So, and I think a lot of people do also think that of you because I know people post that and tag you. Oh, I saw this. So I do know that's a big part of who you are. All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much for sharing just a little bit about you, and I want to get definitely into all of your goodies that you're
Okay.
doing. So you are now going to share your new venture with us, your Graceful Living Challenge. But I want to first focus on the letter writing project because that's something that I've really been wanting to bring to my group. I just know that's really going to uplift a lot of women and give a lot of hope to women and some things like that. And hold on, I want to gotta do my fancy thing here. Hold on.
Do your fancy thing.
Look at
Oh,
that. Woo-hoo, the name
fancy.
of your book. So I have to say, when I was rereading it, I sobbed through the first half and I was just motivated through the whole second half, partially maybe because I knew some of the cast of characters, but I had read it years ago, and to even read it again, it's just such a fantastic book. So I'm really excited, but I wanted to just, if you don't mind, there's this passage at the end of your book that I thought I would just quickly read, and it'll kind of set the stage for your book, and
All
then
right.
we're going to go from there. All right.
I can't wait.
All right. So first of all, right here, the letter writing project. All right, it says, Dear reader, thank you so much for reading the letter writing project. This is your chance to figure out what lies deep inside of you. What do you care about? What pisses you off? What can you help to change? Who do you love? Do they know it? Who changed your life? Do you know the top 5 people who are contributed to the amazing person you are today? Have they ever been thanked? The only goal is to help us make the world a brighter, kinder place. We can get to know ourselves better and develop the lives we deserve by creating our own honest perspective through the art of letter writing. It can be something we all share. And I just love that. I kind of just felt like that just kind of summed so much of who you are and a lot of this up. And, you were talking about inspiring each other, and you were the first person I ever knew to write a book. And it just gave me that kind of thing that she could do it. I knew that I could do it. And
Awesome.
yeah, and I'm a person who likes to write, but I'm not a letter writer. But after I read your book, years ago, I actually did sit down. I never sent them, but I did write 2 letters to my father's ex-wife and to my father, or to my brother, who I was having trouble with at that time. And I couldn't get the thoughts out of my head. And it just made such a world of difference. So I really am excited for you to bring these tools to my audience. I just knew one day you would. So just give us all, I'm going to stop gabbing because I could gab forever, but just give me a little bit more background on your motivation to initially write this book, and how does it kind of evolve to help others. And I'm going to get myself off the screen so you can just have it all to yourself.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Well, so that's great. It's kind of funny to just talk to yourself. So in 2011, on April 2nd, my sister was killed in a car accident. And actually, I was at that synagogue that Jill was talking about, and I was playing bingo. And well, you don't need to hear the whole story about that. But anyway, what had happened prior to that was that my sister and I, we were very close, but we also had sort of a complex relationship. My mom was divorced at a time in the 70s when kids weren't divorced. My sister took care of me. My father actually pitted us against each other. And so there was just a lot of tension between the two of us, but we were really close. I was always trying to live up to her expectations of me. And sometimes that felt like it stifled me and sort of put a thumb on my neck for not being able to grow. Long story short, my older son, both of my kids are adopted from Russia. And it's actually interesting that this person who did this is Russian. I didn't even know it. I went on, I forget the name of it right now. Well, the graphic design site that I just put a bid out for somebody to take my bid, and it happened to be a Russian woman, which was amazing. And I love this cover. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place, but my kids are adopted, and it's important for the whole book to know that. But Andre, my older son, was having his bar mitzvah, and my sister called me. So this was on February 19th was the bar mitzvah, and Donna passed on April 2nd. And so right before that, maybe about a month prior, she called me and said, look, I want you to know I'm making a conscious decision to not come to Andre's bar mitzvah. And it just blew me away. And yes, the money was difficult. And yes, the travel was difficult. And yes, she had a couple jobs and she had a really tough life. But this was like the one moment that we, in our little family, my husband and I and the kids, that we were really looking forward to. And I just couldn't believe that it wasn't important enough for her to come. So here's the interesting piece. I did what I always do, which is one of my gifts and also one of my liabilities, is that I said, it's okay, when it wasn't. So I was really upset about it. And we had this wonderful, wonderful party. And Andre did great on the bima and, just did such a marvelous job. And so great. So anyway, and Donna wasn't there. And I was hurt. But I said it was okay. So anyway, long story short, the next month, I really was having difficulty talking to her. And mostly it's because I never knew how to say the truth for me. And I should have just said the truth. So on that April 2nd evening, when my mother called me screaming into the phone that her beloved firstborn child was dead, how she's screaming and yelling at me, my whole world fell apart. And when at the memorial, which was packed, there was probably 300, 400 people there. It was just unbelievable. My brother-in-law had asked me to say something. And a couple days prior, I was thinking to myself, what am I going to say? How am I going to even say anything? And I wrote her a letter, because Donna and I were always letter writers. My mother was a letter writer. My grandfather was a letter writer. I grew up around letter writers. I'm going to write her a letter. And it's actually in the book at the end. And so I wrote her a letter. The book first started to be letters to loved ones. Say what you need to say, get it off your chest before it's too late, because my sister passed. And now I was grieving and furious at myself. So I had both of those things going on, and what a terrible burden, unnecessary burden. So I started writing the book, and here's how it's fascinating about being a dot connector and realizing that we all have gifts and we're all supposed to shine, because I didn't have a publisher. I had no idea what I was doing. But one thing led to another, and sure enough, I got a publisher, Blooming Twig Books, and he liked the concept. And anyway, I worked with Kent Gustafson, and Kent said, this book is like a C. It's like good, but it's a C, and I'm going to help you make it an A. And how we did it was we started talking about all of the community activism work that I had done for years and years and years, because I've been in the nonprofit world for almost 30 years. And I have done a lot of advocacy for a lot of people. And it became a book to dig deep into what's important to you, and then write those letters to get that out of your system, and whether even you send them or you don't send them. And the first letter is one of the first, is to my sister, and there are multiple letters. The book is split into chapters on forgiveness, on a broken heart, on heroes, on judgments, on remorse, on love letters. And so anyway, I wrote that. And one last thing about it is that the thing about letter writing is that there's so many gifts along the way. The first gift is that there's something about the art of writing. And people ask me all the time, can you type or do you have to handwrite? However you express yourself is just fine, because my son handwrites doesn't help him be creative, but when he types, he can be creative. So however you can be creative. But the first gift is to tap into what's important to you. What are you feeling about the moment? Get in touch with that. The next thing is putting it on paper. And I have a rule that you don't ever write letters that'll hurt someone. You can say what's your truth, but with the lens of uplifting rather than tearing down. And then the next thing is, so that's the first gift. And then the second gift is that you mail it. And then the third gift is that they go to the mailbox and they find this letter with your beautiful handwriting on it, or your typed letters. And they go, oh, that's a gift. And then they give it back. They read it and they get it back to you. So it's a whole bunch of gifts. But the most important thing is that it's getting stuff out of you. And when we write it, we free our mind of it. Also, I wanted to say, I know you're coming back on. I've got two more important things.
No. I want to make sure that I'm. It's a technical thing. I want to make sure that it's smoothly. You keep going.
Okay,
You're doing great. Yes. Don't mind me at all. Okay.
Then on the anniversary, the year after my sister passed, that year, that day, my husband said, I have a present for you. I don't know if you're going to be angry at me or happy with me. I was like, okay. And he handed me, I should have brought it downstairs, a book this thick of every email that she and I had ever written to each other, going back to the beginning of email. And it blew me away. And he said, I'm going to try not to cry. He said, I'm going to give this to you, and I'm going to take the kids. They were at the time 11 and 13, and said, I'm going to take them and enjoy yourself. And I took a cup of coffee and sat outside. But what was fascinating was I could hear her voice, and he had gone back. I couldn't even believe he did this, because we used to share an email address, and he always liked the way she wrote. He loved her letters because they came to both of us, and he just kept track of them. He went back to Earthlink, to Mindspring, all of these things. I know, and he got them all.
Well, that is a good man you got there.
He's a good man. And the problem is I can never share it with my mother, because sometimes there are things in there that, sisters say about their moms.
Yeah.
I got to hear her voice again. And I can hear it anytime I want when I read those words. Because she used to say, hi, Wen. It's Dawn. and I can hear it. So that's
Oh, that's
amazing.
beautiful.
The very last thing I want to say about letter writing is that I did a whole bunch of work with high school students. And and if we have enough time, I guess I can read one of those letters at the end. But I donated a whole bunch of books to an English class at our local high school where my kids go to school. And the teacher, about like a week later, and we did a whole thing on how letter writing is about getting in touch with really what you believe in, your truth, and putting it on paper and releasing it and maybe changing the world or maybe not. And so Andre, my older son, walks up one day. I was outside and he has a stack of letters from the classes that I taught. And these kids blew me away. And I have them. They're all here. They're all in here. I will read one.
Yes, definitely.
And I mean, just like I can't wait to read one because they were just mind blowing.
Do you want to
do it?
read mine as well?
Yeah. And then I want to tell you also, I got a letter from someone who, a very well-known Florida activist who does sexual assault advocacy against sexual assault survivor advocacy. Right. She sent me the letter to her perpetrator that she needed to get out. She didn't want to mail it anywhere, but she sent it to me and said, I need to get this off my chest, and felt freer for the first time ever since that time. So it's really powerful. Okay, so I'm going to read.
It truly is. Wow.
It's so powerful.
I just think it's awesome that not only do you write them, but that you have them. I mean, when the fact that you could go back and have a stack like that is amazing. And unfortunately, with emails and things like that, a lot of people, they get deleted. So people go crazy. I have thousands of emails on my phone, and I'm like, I'm afraid to delete anything. What if it's important? But it's lost. So I holding on to that paper and right there in your hands.
Awesome. It's awesome. So this was written in 2015, and there was a terrible house fire here in Baltimore, and one of the whole family perished except for this one girl, and she was in the classes. So she writes, "Dear Mrs. Wolfe, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk with us. Also, thank you for donating 20 books to the class so we can read them. Since you came to my class, I have been more determined and more willing to chase my dream. What really got me was when you said that each and every one of us have something special about us. When you're talking about your sister, it inspired me to write a letter to my sister. My sister died this past December 14th, 2014, because of a really bad house fire. Once I wrote the letter, I felt a lot of guilt lifted from me, and I felt relieved. I just want to thank you one more time for coming. I don't think I would have ever written her a letter without you inspiring me." Wow. And I got more and more and more and more, and gosh.
Yeah, so you've seen firsthand not only what your gifts have done, but you've like you said, this ripple effect that you have started with this child that who knows how lost she could have been, and just one small tool like writing a letter, right? Or could be that thing that sets her off. So I want to ask you about that. Is that okay? So you talked about in your book like emotional freedom and it being a freeing thing, and we talk kind of here in the Midlife Mojo group about like eating freedom and chemical living freedoms and those kinds of types of freedoms. But tell a little bit more about how this can really help a woman as she ages. Like how can specifically the midlife woman use this tool to help her?
That's a great question. So because letter writing, it's almost equivalent to journaling. Journaling does the same thing. It frees the mind of the burden and releases the mind to stop reliving something because you've written it, you've almost gotten it out. And I have this little book, this journal book that I probably have 6 of them, that when something is very stressful for me at night, and I haven't used it in a long time, I write in it, close it, put it in my drawer, and then I can go to sleep because it's released. So what letter writing does is the same thing, but when I'm connecting to you as a human, so if I'm writing to you, I'm not only am I releasing myself or experiencing something, but I'm doing it with you, even if you're not present. So to me, the emotional freedom came when I just got very clear about how I felt about a lot of things. And some of the some of the letters in here, like, I felt a lot of guilt about, like, one thing in particular, I felt a tremendous amount of guilt about, and I wrote it in a letter. And what's funny is that I never sent the letter, but I saw the person like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and I told him that, and I got to say I'm sorry, which I don't know if I would have ever had the courage to do, because I was really embarrassed about it, and I got to say I'm sorry. So I feel like it gave me emotional freedom. I'll tell you the other things that I might write to these days. Like, I'd like to write a little bit to my gray hair that's coming out that I'm welcoming because I'm sick of being a
Say, I
slave.
got 1,700 colors here too. I feel the same. Yeah, getting
You
there.
know, but you can write letters to anything or anyone. Doesn't have to be a human being. It's how do I feel right now, and just allowing yourself, because when you're doing that privately and you've got a target, you're able to really generate some emotional healing.
I love that. I love that. So, and I'm going to get myself off screen because I want to be able to use this to shine in here. But you're very transparent in your letter. So I was glad that you just brought up that kind of feeling the guilt thing, and admitting something that you've done is very hard for people to do, right? It's almost easier sometimes to keep that blaming that other person, even maybe you kind of even know, or just keeping that gap because, like you said, you might never have said you're sorry. So, you talked about forgiving yourself and so forth and asking others to forgive you. So you could said a little bit of how it's changed you, but how can it really like change relationships by just writing these, admitting some of these things that maybe we deep down don't want to? And I'm gonna.
Well, I think it helps us to be, just honest, and pride is, pride just keeps us separate, and it can destroy. And I'm going to be even more transparent right now. I have a relationship in my life with one of my stepbrothers that, we don't communicate right now, and that's sad. And I wrote him a letter, and a letter in here, and I have continued to write him over the years, but he's not biting. And I never imagined that I would be somebody who had a relationship like this, because I try to work on those things. So I feel like forgiveness is critical, but only you can forgive yourself first. Only I can forgive me for the things that I've done, and then and that's the release. And whether or not the other person embraces that, that's their journey. So I don't want pride, and pride can, like, make you afraid, and it can make you arrogant and totally throw you off. And so I prefer to feel the intensity of humiliation and regret and dismay and sorrow. I'd rather feel that for its moment and embrace it than walk around going, beep, 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 like, he's wrong, and we both are wrong, and maybe he is wrong, but I just feel like, and if it's supposed to be in time, it'll come around. But for me, I want to know what my part is in it, and letter writing helps me to understand that. And I actually get up every morning and write. So I'm going to be risky here. I write to God every day, to spirit, to the divine, and just write and write and write and write and write until I feel like I've gotten my answers and what I need.
That's beautiful, and nothing's risky here. We all welcome everything and everyone, however everybody wants to fulfill their lives. So I appreciate you sharing, and kind of going on that little bit, right? That's okay, But I wanted you to talk about love letters, right? Because like people think of the love letters, and my gosh, I have a stack. When my husband, when we were young, he's a letter writer, and he wrote me the mushiest gushiest, and he gets all embarrassed when I come across them every once in a while. The stack, and I start reading them, and they, of course, they mean so much. But even beyond like the love of those kind of letters, just love letters in general, you talk about beyond just the mushy love. So just kind of talk a little bit about like that a little bit, why it's important to let other people know how you feel.
Yeah. So, so I said first, it's important because you simply don't want to like have life continue and God forbid things happen. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I feel like I want people to feel loved. I have this pin that says you are loved. It's like, yes, everybody. Love is what binds us. It's what keeps us whole. It's what moves us forward. It's up there. So I feel like it's really important to let people know how much you love them. And there's nothing like opening up a piece of mail randomly. So I hate thank you cards, just so everybody knows. You can ask, I don't know if she's listening, Mindy Fetterman. I don't like thank you cards. And she always goes, tisk, tisk, tisk. Here's what I like, though. The obligatory thank you doesn't work for me. But if you're going to send me a note you've just been thinking of me and you've decided to send me a little note, that's going to blow my mind. And gosh, we should just tell each other and write each other about and profess our love, our deep love for each other, our admiration. This is a good one. I forgot about this. My friend from growing up. So my parents got split up when I was when I was 5. It was the 70s. And I had a neighbor around the corner, Beth Friedman, and her parents were the kindest to me. They took me everywhere with them. My mom was a single mom. She didn't have a lot of time for me and my sister. And so Beth's family just welcomed me. I didn't know any different. I was always welcome there. I was always there. I could walk into their kitchen anytime I want. I could do anything I wanted. I never felt inhibited. And I wrote to her mom, Maxine, a couple years ago after I wrote this book and just sent it randomly. Knew that where she lived and sent her the letter, and it blew her mind because I was grateful and I wanted her to know that was really important for me as a kid. Like probably the only stability that I really felt I had was when I was in the Friedman's house, and everything else was so topsy-turvy. So I think expressing your love is really deeply important, and it will make you a better person. Yeah, I'm just looking at these love letters and then you get to hear their voice too. Like my letter from my grandfather that I still have, that I got to like hear his voice and watch his penmanship sort of fade off the paper. It was amazing.
You know, it's funny because right before we got on here, I've been working with my mom going through bins of old family photos. My parents got divorced in our 20s and I inherited all the pictures and they're just in big bins. And so now my parents are friends again 25 years later and we're all one big, they're divorced still, but we're all one big happy family. And so mom and I are going through and separating. And I knew I had a bin of memorabilia, like from my grandparents. So right before we got on here, because tomorrow I'm going over to mom's and we're going to work on that bin. And in there was my grandmother's like letters. I can't wait just to show she has no idea the
Oh,
gifts that are going to be in here. Letters to my mom when she was young, just so much. So it was just like serendipitous. I don't know if that's the right word, but it just
yeah,
felt
that's great.
yeah, but this would happen here. So I want to get on to your next venture real quick, but I have one last question about this, just because I feel like it's timely in this day and age of everything that's going on. But you're talking about acknowledging other people and how wonderful it feels to get something just out of nowhere. And you have a chapter, excuse me, on heroes. And there's a lot of really unsung heroes in this world going
Yeah.
on right now. And we can certainly write letters to our friends and our loved ones, but speak about all those unsung heroes and how maybe we can lift up the world by
Yeah.
maybe sharing something. And I'm going to come off because I'm sure you got stuff to say on this.
Yeah, I'm going back and looking at that. I haven't read this from cover to cover in a while. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Okay. So, yeah. So I don't even know where to begin. All right, I'm just looking at all the stories and yeah, I'm going to talk about so I have two letters to two heroes, but my yeah, I'm just sorry. I'm just looking. Okay, so um I don't even know where to begin. Okay, I'm going to talk about my brother. So my older brother Mark, I have two stepbrothers. My older brother Mark, after September 11th, when September 11th happened, he so he's a New Yorker. He lived in Westchester County at the time when everybody was fleeing Manhattan. So I believe he was about 50 years old at the time. He went into New York City, grabbed a fireman's hat, put it on his head, and spent the next 4 days helping. And actually, if any of you are New Yorkers here and you saw on the cover of the newspaper, there was a stuffed animal that was found. He found it. And so Mark, his name is Mark, and that effort blew me away. And what it did for him at 50 years old, he was so inspired by everything that he did and the people he met and the actions that he took. He joined the New York Guard at 50 something years old. And I just never ever, so he's also a giant smartass, excuse my language. And so, I'm like, it's this constant humor and cynicism and sarcasm that's coming at you all the time. And I don't think I ever really had the chance to tell him how many times I've repeated that story and how deeply impressed I was with his ability to jump in, take action for all of us. And then as an older guy, as in his midlife, to join the New York Guard, which he's almost 60. Maybe he's beyond 60 now. I don't know. But he's still in service and fit as a fiddle. So he's one of my heroes for that work that he did. But I also wrote to my son's teacher. I've had to do a lot of advocacy for my younger son, but for both kids. And I never met a teacher who cared about children until I met my older son, my son Andre's second grade teacher, Lisa Hamilton. And I hadn't been talking to her, and I sent her a book and said, you're the teacher I'm talking about, because many years later, 5 years later, when my younger son Roman was in 7th grade and really needed a loving, caring adult, she was his teacher for double period at the middle of the day when he was at his worst. And so I was deeply grateful. So I think it's important to tell people why you admire them, why they make a difference for you, why you aspire to be like them. It helps pump people up so they keep going. There's a book called Fill Your Bucket, right? It's like be a bucket filler. I want to be a bucket filler.
I love that. Yeah. And I agree with you. I mean, I always say I am very fortunate in what I do. And not to, toot my own horn, but I'm very grateful that I have people almost on a daily basis who send me a note how I've made a difference, or they read something, or it changed, whatever. It's just a little something. And the fact that somebody took the time to just write what they were thinking in that little note, it doesn't have to be anything, big and da da da, it just means so much, and it makes you want to do more and keep going. And it comes down to why I've really created this series. It kind of just goes back to being seen. And that's what we talk about as this midlife woman, feeling invisible. And, you were very visible, Wendy, and and I want that to be, we want to shine our light. So, anyway, so kind of getting away from your book now, I want to kind of get into your next venture, because I'm excited to learn more about this. So it's called the Graceful Living Challenge.
Yes.
And I'm going to go off screen and I'm just going to let you take it away and talk about it. And I'm going to put ladies, if people were watching in the comments, I did earlier put a link to Wendy's book in there. And then I'm going to, while I'm off screen, put a link to her Facebook group as well, as she talks to you a little bit more about the challenge. So thanks.
Great. Thank you so much. So the book, I wrote the book Letter Writing Project in 2014. And at that time, when you lose someone, you have a couple choices. And I'm going to back up a little bit. I can't remember the year. Oh, yes, I do remember the year. I think it was 1997. No. When did I get married? Oh, God, I can never remember. Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, the year I got married, right after that, my grandfather passed. And I remembered my sister said she had visited him that day and was with him when he passed. And he said, Donna, I'm going to go now. And she said, oh, what are you talking about? And he did. And so we talked a lot about that, she and I. And so when she passed, I started thinking about, I just simply don't believe that this is all there is, this skin and bones and experience. And so I started getting really in touch with the notion of the divine connection and the greater spiritual links or threads that bind us together. And so I started like doing a lot of research and reading and practicing on how do we, so the book helped me understand that we're supposed to shine our light. We're supposed to give. We're supposed to be our gifts, and that we all have them. And then I wanted to figure out how to really connect that deeply to this concept of spirituality. So the other thing about me is I've been practicing sort of this notion of metaphysics and crystals and spirituality since I'm probably 22 years old. I'm 55 now. And my sister actually is the one who got me into it. So, but I kept it very compartmentalized because I thought people would think I'm woo-woo or weird or, you know, whatever. And the Graceful Living Challenge, so it's on Facebook. You can join the group. I'm happy to. There's a couple questions. I'm a little I keep it really protected because I want to keep the sanctity. But I'm trying to remember, I think it was about 4 years ago, around the same time that I was having a lot of difficulty with my younger son, who was struggling a lot. I decided that I would have a 9-day Graceful Living Challenge. And it just came to me. And what's fascinating so I don't know if anybody ever follows Abraham Hicks, which is something you should put in your bonnet to look into another day. But one of the things about the law of attraction and the secret and all of that is that we are, once you put out there what you truly desire and you eliminate all of the limitations and the negativity from it, that it happens. And so ideas, which is fascinating, ideas are messages essentially from beyond. And what they say is in the realm is that when you finally have an idea, you're the last person to know, right? So we in our human selves are the last person to know. Anyway, I'm going round and round. So the Graceful Living Challenge was a 9-day challenge for us to deeply connect to what is important. And I think I can share my screen, but I'm not going to be too sophisticated here because I don't want to ruin the whole interview. But I started what I would do is get up every morning, meditate for a few minutes, and then start writing, because that is the thing that's my gift, which is I'm able to connect to what is real and true when I'm writing. And so I would create challenges, and we did it for 9 days, and every day was a 24-hour practice. So I'm just looking at my other screen for a second to give you an example of one. So we had one full day that was about compassionate thinking, right? So for the whole day, and this was the writing that I accompanied this beautiful image for people to meditate on. It says, "Good morning. Remind yourself to access loving thoughts toward yourself and others during the next 12 hours. Be gentle and kind. Know that you have safety inside of yourself and there is peace waiting for you there. Engage without reaction. Speak without blame. Connect without ego. Remain in a loving state of being, and when you get rattled, retreat within, breathe compassion into yourself and towards the other person. We will be okay. We are already okay. We are experiencing these moments to learn, see, and release. All for our best and highest good. With love, Wendy." So I would do that every day for 9 days, and we would have different lessons every day. We had them on compassionate thinking, whispering prayers, the power of being a blessing, activating joy, being still, doing nothing, walking quietly, listening to your thoughts all day long. So just a practice every day. And there's 75 people in it. That's not 700 like in this group, but we just started getting really into practicing how to connect and to connect to ourselves and to each other. And I started gravitating towards video and sharing video. And now I'm going to restart and go back to the photos and the practice. It helped me over the last 4 years in the most profound way possible. I was going through a lot of difficulty with my son, and so this was the one way. Getting up every day, practicing, helped me to be very mindful in how to live and be free. And sorry, what I learned deeply was how to be present, how to completely be present in the moment. And that's the greatest gift I think that the Graceful Living Challenge helps, is to help us practice presence. Because I find my mind going, well, should I worry about this? I want to worry about this. Let's worry about this. Let's worry about this. Let's worry about this. And you have to go, shh, no, and practice to just be simply present. So that's what the Graceful Living Challenge is. And what has come out of that also is that I started doing readings for people and sessions for people. And my girlfriend once said to me, I told her how much I was charging, very, very little. And she's like, "Are you crazy? You're with your talent." Blah. But I don't like to take money from people. I like to get paid for my time, but I don't like to take money from people. I don't believe healing should be out of reach for anyone. So I started doing readings for folks, because what I learned through this process of the Graceful Living Challenge is that and all the lessons that I have is that I am able to work with people and hear things and see things and give them messages and ways to help lift them up. So I do that also through the challenge and other ways. And that's been really fun. I've seen some people do some great stuff recently, just because, not because of my messages, but I gave them the courage and the fuel because of the things that I was able to hear and see.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, people need helpers, or, an outside person to be able to, from do. So that's awesome. So just really kind of, well, we're doing pretty good on time, actually. I was going to kind of get towards the end here, though. But a couple things. How do you see this Graceful Living Challenge evolving in the future? Are you going to do another 9-day challenge? Don't want to put you on the spot, but just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so thank you so much for putting me on the spot, because I'm sure everybody in the challenge would like me to do it. So I sort of fell off the wagon during the pandemic, because I started doing story time with Wendy every night at 8, and I just couldn't do it all. So I was doing story time at night on Facebook Live. And
I was watching those.
my nieces were loving it, and my husband's parents were loving it, and I couldn't disappoint them. But then I once, actually, the dual pandemic, so Black Lives Matter and really honoring and valuing our Black friends and family came on, I was like, ugh, story time with Wendy, who cares? So I am going to start the challenge again, because it really, really helps me. And one of the problems I've had is that Facebook, the algorithms on Facebook, I think, are really different lately. And you're only seeing like 20, 30 people. And I think the groups have that same problem. So I'm looking into ways that I can do this also for free, or maybe even just for like $5 a person, so we can all split the cost on another platform. Okay. But in the interim, I will continue with Facebook for now. And the challenges at the beginning were just 7 days, 9 days, and then they were every day. So I'm going to take your challenge as to start one tomorrow. No, yeah. Let's just do it tomorrow.
And I love it. There you go.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I'm just going to do it. And just get inspired and see if we can each release a little bit and support each other and just have a free life.
Well, and I put there in the comments the way where they can join the Facebook page, and she's just got a couple things. And like I said, she's like me; she's very protective of who gets in her group. Right? We want special people, but I do have wonderful women in this group, so I think they would certainly add a lot to the conversation in your group. So, just to kind of wrap things up, do you have any final message, word, anything you want to say before we end here?
Yeah, well, I think I do. So, what I want to say is that we are all connected. And whether or not we believe that, wherever you came from, whatever community you live in, and what culture you are, we all have the spark of the divine inside of us. And so it's our duty and our responsibility to take care of each other the best we can. Doesn't mean you need to save the world. And as a matter of fact, what I'm learning about Buddhism is that you can be a loving being, but you're not supposed to save anyone. So I think the takeaways are we are all connected. What happens to you does happen to me. And so if we could have that mindset, it might be a little easier for us to care for each other and to navigate these crazy times. In addition, I would also like to say that it is your duty to shine. Came here for a purpose. You are here for a reason. You chose this life. So use it, all of it, with all of its trauma. And trust me, I've had my own. We can rise above. We can shine. Put your gifts in the world, because somebody's waiting to hear that. Somebody. Jill, if it wasn't for you, there would be things that I haven't done. And you wrote your book because I wrote my book. And so the thing is that, and other people have written books because I wrote my book. And it's like, and my book is good, but it's not like the great literary piece. And,
Right.
it's not Anne of Green Gables. It's the thing is that, but it was truth for other people. And this stack, it's not even the whole stack. I've got a notebook here of letters that people have written me that would have never have happened if I didn't do it, if I sold out and didn't share. And I'll never forget, I called my friend Mindy the day before the book was about to get launched. And I was like, I can't do it. Everybody's going to know who I am. No. And she was like, that's ridiculous. Move forward. Who cares? Because somebody's waiting for these words. And that's what we have to remember. Somebody's waiting for your words. Somebody is waiting for your message. So be who you are and get out there and do it with grace.
I just love it. I've been so happy to talk to you like tonight, and actually hear your voice when you talk about that and see you and smile. I'm feeling all huggy and lovey right now. So,
Yeah.
so I really do appreciate you coming on tonight and taking the time to talk about your book. I'm excited for your new venture. I hope that ladies, again, you can grab her book. I put the link in the comments, as well as the Facebook group in the comments. And just, thank you so much for making this first episode of Women with Mojo just so special. And I gotta say, woohoo, we did pretty good with all the tech stuff too. So I'm gonna give myself a little pat on the back for that one. But I'm just gonna say goodbye. And then I just want to say a few words just to wrap things up to everybody. So I'm gonna say goodnight to you now, and hang on there for a little bit, Wendy. I want to talk to you afterwards.
Okay,
All right.
love you. Thank you. And thank you to everybody. And join me in the challenge. Thank you. Bye. Good night.
All right. So I definitely want to thank everybody who's been on here tonight. I see a whole bunch of you, and I'm going to go back through the comments. That was just a little bit too much for me to handle comments in addition to all the other things I was managing, but I'm going to go back. But for those of you who are on here tonight, thank you so much. My intention is to do these at least monthly. Every month, just interview another woman over 40 who's extraordinary and inspiring, and just doing some kind of good in this world. And for those of you most of you are obviously watching this right now on my Facebook Live, but if you are watching this on another channel and you want to get in touch with me, actually, let me change this real quick here. So that way I can do this. There we go, right there. So if you are watching on a different channel, you can find me in our Midlife Mojo group right here at that link, and I'll also put that in the comments as well. But thank you guys so much, and I just hope that you all find your midlife mojo and shine your light and gifts with the world. And we will see you next month. Bye-bye.